gay pasta, people. Today I'm going to be upgrading my lab with this workbench. Well, actually not today because I already built it, but this is how I did it. Alright, so starting off, we got Design Spark Mechanical here, and this is the CAD model that I made. So primarily the main source of difficulty on this project is going to be fabricating this little bench top here. And the design I'm going with is this guy right here, which is around 4 square feet of workable surface area. And it's pretty nice, but I needed to figure out how to get it on a large template. So I ended up just like tracing it onto some wrapping paper, which made it a little bit more difficult, but that's what I'm going with. So then looking at the support structure here, the way I set it up is I was going to have these rungs here, these 8 rungs. Oh, that's my pizza. So what I was saying before was that for these 8 rungs here, I went ahead and I made a template for each of them. So there's 2 variations. There's the outer rung and then the inner rung here. And this is what they look like. So they'll just fit outer rung like this, and then the inner rung like that. Now it's just time to go to Lowe's and get some lumber. So now that I got my lumber, the next step was to section it out so that I can actually fit my templates and stuff on it. So right now I'm just cutting down the sides, and then you'll see me in a second here. Oh, there I am. Now I'm just joining the edges to get rid of that factory edge so that everything sits together nice and flush and I get it straight. So I just got done joining all of my boards together and gluing my template on, so it's now in sections. Now all that's left to do is cut them out and then assemble them. Just finished up with the bandsaw. All the pieces are cut out and it looks pretty good. All right, so now that I got all my pieces cut out, the next part was to actually join them together. So for this, I'll be using a dowel joint technique. So right here, you can see me, I'm drilling the holes that the dowels will fit into. And then later on, those will be glued in and set for good with some clamps. All right, so now you can see I'm inserting these little metal things into those holes that I just drilled. And these are called center marks. So you'll see in a second what they're used for. But basically what you do is you insert these into the dowel holes, and then you hold your piece of wood up just like that on the top of them. And I actually already scored the center line of this piece of wood, so I can already sort of line it up. And then you just give the top of it a light tap with a hammer, and then that'll give you, it'll transfer the center mark of that hole to the other piece of wood so that you can then make more holes for the other end of the dowel. And now it's time for the glue up. Okay, so at this stage, we're ready to finalize this paneling technique. So I'm inserting the dowels with some wood glue so I can throw some clamps on there and then hopefully make a straight paneled bench top. Okay, so now I got my clamps all set up and all axes, and it's looking pretty good. So now I just have to let it dry. Isn't that right, Shop Dog? So the good news is that I think I'll be able to wake up tomorrow morning to a beautiful desktop here. Bad news is she's mad at me because it's 12 in the morning and I'm still making noise. I'm so sorry, dog. I know, I'm sorry. So coming back the next morning, I got my paneled section all complete and dried. So I took off the clamps, and surprisingly, it actually turned out to be pretty straight. Super excited about that. And then to take off some of the weird edges with the wood glue, I just used a block plane, as you can see there. Pretty fun, very satisfying process. And then I sanded the rest of it down, made sure it was nice and smooth. Yep, there I am with the sander. And yeah, so just did that a bunch, lots and lots of sanding. Took forever, my arms really hurt. And then we used the trim router, which is a 1/4-inch bit, and then I just went around the outside edge of it to just soften things up a bit. So that was pretty cool. Then hand sanded it to make sure it was nice and smooth, blew it off, and we pretty much had the final product here. So yeah, there I am, pretty excited. Yep, super cool. All right, and then yep, there we get it. All right, so then I went to paint it. Decided to paint this guy white because it would really stand out against any other parts. Okay, so it's the next day, and my paint has fully dried. It's still a little rough. There's a few spots here and there that, you know, don't look too great, but it was pretty low grid lumber to start out with, and it is a workbench, so I'm not too concerned about the aesthetics of it. So the next step of this project is to use this lumber here to build the structural portion of my beautiful workbench. Alright, so now I'm going to go make some measurements relative to my desk, and here I am making the incorrect measurement. I will suffer from that later on, but then now it's just screwing things together. It was really weird making this structure because the angles on it are just way more complicated than they should be. So nothing's really perpendicular to each other, meaning that you have to get all weird with the clamps and try to, you know, fit stuff together. So, but in the end, it worked out pretty well, and I'm pretty happy with it. Also, if you look really closely amongst the gingerness, you can see that I do have wood glue in my hair, so that's pretty cool. It's probably still there. So in the future, if I ever build something like this again, I think I'll probably just make some type of jig for assembly, so that way I can actually bolt the pieces down to it, or you know, some kind of clamping fixture that would make it a lot easier to actually do this. But doing it freehand was an experience. So quick update. I kind of want to kick myself for designing this thing the way I did, with all these really weird angles, because it was quite a task to actually get that structure built. And it's not done yet. I still have the last vertical piece here that would go on the end to close it all up. But it was just really difficult to find a way to actually clamp these down so that I could, you know, pilot hole and then screw them together. So it's a little rough around the edges. You can see the progression here with first attempt at this really weird piece and then coming down and gradually getting better. So it doesn't look the best. You got the exposed screw heads at that weird angle. But again, this workbench is for utility purposes, and I'm not really trying to make a fancy piece of furniture, so I'll just paint over it and call it good. So now es tiempo para la fin partido. Yeah. All right, so I think I just finished up with the main frame here, and it's actually seems pretty stable. So let's pull it out and see what happened. And there we have it, folks. Not the prettiest construction, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't stable. So if this thing's gonna be, you know, in my workshop, it's gotta have the mandatory strength test. For scientific purposes, of course. That's about as far as I'm gonna go. So I just set up my leg structure for test fit with my desk, and it turns out I made one error when cutting the wood, and that was not accounting for the thickness of the table itself. So right now it's sitting 3/4 of an inch too high, meaning that I get to cut 3/4 off manually. Okay, so now that this part is finished to as much as I would like to finish it, it's time to make it look pretty. So for the base, I got this blue color because it's old spray paint. So it's the next morning and everything has dried, so now it's time for assembly. So my assembly solution was a little bit archaic. I was originally going to do some kind of pocket holes with some screws coming up from the bottom so you couldn't see any of the screw heads. But then I decided to go on the side of functionality instead to get the maximum clamping force. So I just took like 2 4-inch long screws from the top of each post and then sunk them down into those vertical supports there. So you can see the screw head from the top, but I fixed it later and it turned out pretty good. All right, so it's all assembled. Doggo approved, of course. And I really like how it turned out. Alright, so I didn't really spend too much time figuring out how to hide these, nor do I really care, so I'm just going to hit it with some whiteout. Call it good. And just like that, my work was pretty much done. Did another strength testing exercise here. Looks super cool, yep. And then it was time for installation. So brought it in here, you know, fit up, looked pretty nice and solid. And then I went and I fabricated this base plate that goes underneath the desk that actually bolts to or screws into the existing desk. So this is it right here. So then here I am installing that. Super cool, you know, nice stuff. Makes it really super nice and sturdy. And after all of this, it was finally ready to take it on a test drive. And to do that, I decided to build a small radio with all of my equipment mounted on my desk. And I made this cool montage, so enjoy.
Ron.
Alright, so great little project to kick off the building that I'm going to do on this desk. I gotta say, I really like it. It's super great to have more space. And can't wait to build more stuff. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you learned something and have a good one.